Good afternoon, short story writers. This is plastic bags, polythene bags, and a load of old rubbish, part 3. Okay, so polythene bags, plastic bags are they're something which we still throw out, but they have a wider application. Obviously, they are used to form damp proofing in buildings. They lay down the concrete and then they put down polythene sheeting to stop water getting into the concrete and also to stop water rising out of the concrete. It serves two purposes as a membrane, and it can go also form. Some builders have been known to use it as damp proofing course, rather than something a bit tougher. I've known people use plastic bags to fill in holes and then plaster over them when the hole is very, very big in the plaster work. A house that I bought, the previous owner had done that. He was a builder, and that was one of his little tricks, rather than putting in something a bit more substantial. So, we're talking about using something in the trash for your protagonist to use as some sort of preventative. Now, it could be that there's a power cut, and so they go rummaging in their trash to find bags to keep themselves warm in the winter. It could be that they use it to, let's talk about some sort of dystopian, not so science fiction reality or environment where, I say this because, how long ago was it? Maybe sometime in the last 5 or 6 years, power lines in Britain were down in one part of the country for 3 weeks. So if those people did not have gas in their property to cook with, then they were going to get cold. So I don't know how they fared, but it's happened, and therefore it could possibly happen again. And if it happened in the middle of a severe set of weather conditions, very, very inclement weather, then people would have to start doing the kind of things that people do in stories in order to survive. There's a whole culture around this called preppers. If you're unaware of it, it's quite ingenious, some of it, although, well, the politics behind it aren't quite so good. And there are two types of people: those expecting the zombie apocalypse, but others expecting confrontation with their own government in the United States. So I'm not sure how that would go down in Britain. I think we'd probably all, being British, say, "Okay, sir, yes, well, whatever you say." Anyway, imagine that you got to get water from somewhere. If there's snow outside, that's fair enough. You just shovel it in a bucket or a saucepan or whatever, let it melt, and then you've got water you can at least drink and possibly even bathe in if you are brave enough, provided it thaws indoors, if you can get it warm enough. And I would imagine people start breaking up furniture and making fires and the like. Use of polythene bags. I once saw a video. This is ingenious, and I'll leave you to. It was one of the prepper videos. So I was fascinated by it. Somebody, I'll say he used a plastic bag, but that's not true. He used a condom, and he filled it with urine, and then he used it. Okay, so he used it as a magnifying glass. He got some paper or some kindling or whatever, and the sun. He concentrated the sun's beam until the kindling, the paper, caught fire. And good grief! Oh, and this was not in the middle of winter. I mean, you'd need to wait for water, but he used urine. He put his own urine in. So, just putting that out there, that if you're going to write this kind of survivalist fiction, then your imagination can go into orbit. Now, can this be used for literary genre? Of course it can. people do this kind of thing in real life all the time. I remember reading a news report of a woman in what was then Yugoslavia. She was in the winter cut off from all medical supplies, and she had to perform a section on herself. And she survived, but she performed a cesarean section on herself to deliver her child because she couldn't get to a hospital, and she knew she would die if she didn't, and so would the baby. No anaesthetic, as far as I'm aware, and I believe she had a razor blade, and that's what she did. And my God, it's making my legs cross thinking about it, but people do this kind of thing all the time. So if you're thinking this kind of thing is not the stuff of everyday life, I'm saying it's not everyday as in it's going on in your next door neighbour's house. It's not Peyton Place or anything, but it does happen. People do these things. The guy who was left by his fellow climber, and he had to cut his own arm off with a very small, his own, I think, wrist, in order to survive, because it was wedged in a rock and he couldn't get out, and he knew his hand was destroyed anyway. It was going to go gangrenous. He cut it off with a penknife. People do these things in order to survive. So you can use that as your starting point for a fiction writing prompt if you wish. But going back to the survivalist thing, somebody's on the run. Think John Rambo, stroke the first Rambo film, and if you want, where he got inspired from that, the whole Vietnamese story, because they were guerrilla. The upcyclists and the recyclists would be very, very proud of the Vietnamese and the Viet Cong. They were ingenious. War's always tragedy, but the fact that they had nothing, and they were very David and Goliath. Really, no matter what your feelings about it is, I urge you to look into some of the things that went on, and yeah. Right, 707. Yeah, and obviously sci-fi, science fiction, fantasy, horror. Then your sci-fi hero could be using anything that they can get hold of in order to kind of have a guerrilla war against the enemy, whoever they may be in a dystopian society, and ditto to trap spirits and ghosts and other ghouls. Right, gonna get off here because YouTube don't want to monetize this in the middle. All right, I'll say bye bye and happy writing. And as usual, this one if it was good, that one if it was bad. Bye bye.